Hey, Jerry Corley here, standupcomedyclinic.com with another episode of Ask the Joke Doctor. In this episode, we're going to talk about a structure, compare and contrast, and I'm going to show you in this video how three different comedians, all pros, all at the top of their game, use the compare and contrast structure. You know, a lot of people say that, these pros don't use structure, man. And they do. They just finesse it so that you can't really see it. You really have to focus and pay attention, and you got to know what you're looking for. So we're going to take a look at that. Now, the compare and contrast structure taps into some of the most early fundamental principles of comedy, where we take two similar ideas and show their differences, or two different ideas and show their similarities. So compare and contrast is kind of an opposite to an analogy, where we take an analogy and we show two dissimilar ideas and how they're similar. Like, my girlfriend's like an egg, hard on the outside, soft on the inside, and in the mornings I like her over easy. Or my ex-wife, who's an alcoholic, is a lot like the signal on a smartphone. At any given time, I could usually find her at least one bar. And that's an analogy showing two dissimilar ideas and how they're similar. But in the compare and contrast, you're actually showing the stark differences between two ideas, and audiences love to see those side-by-side comparisons. Often, you see them used in tropes like good news, bad news, dark clouds, silver lining, pros and cons, side-by-side comparisons like, hey, when you're 22, this happens, but when you're 52, this happens. Or the difference between men and women, husbands and wives, gay people, straight people, black people, white people, countries, environmentalists versus capitalists, all kinds of little neat comparisons we can use back and forth. When people see those stark comparisons, what you're doing is you're taking a grand concept and distilling it down to two primary ideas, and that really helps the audience process it. And they get to see this kind of grand concept in a very distilled two side-by-side comparison idea. Great idea for comedy and communication, because most people can only keep track of two or three ideas at one time. So let's take a look. Here in this video, I'm going to show you Rita Rudner using compare and contrast, Bill Burr, and show how he uses compare and contrast. We're going to show two back-to-back compare and contrasts in the same bit from Bill Burr. Then we're going to jump over to Shane Gillis, another comedian most people say doesn't use structure. And I wanted to show how he uses the compare and contrast structure very clearly in this bit. Shane Gillis has that way of using that chuckle, that giggle he uses in his act, makes him seem very colloquial, like it's just a conversation, and makes him charming and disarming when he gets into some of his more controversial material. But let's take a look at these three comedians. And remember, as you're watching this, pros use comedic structure, amateurs don't. First, let's take a look at Rita Rudner. She's actually using a good news, bad news trope in this case. Take a look.
Well, there's always a silver lining. The bad news is the world is ending. The good news is everything's on sale.
See how easy that was? She just did good news, bad news. The audience can easily siphon through that, figure it out, see the side-by-side comparison, pops the laugh. It's something they can relate to. It's all right there. Let's take a look now at Bill Burr, another comedian that people say doesn't use structure, and see how he uses this compare and contrast structure back to back.
Like, I'm not married, and I'm really getting to that critical age where, pretty soon I'm just, I got to pick a street. Either I'm going to get married, or I'm just going to be that creepy old guy hanging out in a bar, red chest hair hanging out. No, seriously, I don't know what's wrong with me. I think I just stayed single too long, man. It's just brutal. There's this critical point when you stay single too long, and when your brain switches from, don't say that to her. Fuck it, say it, see what happens.
So you can see how he doubled up. He did one, and then he did another one right next to it. So tell me that the compare and contrast structure isn't a structure used by the top comedians. Now, let's take a look at Shane Gillis using the compare and contrast structure. And in this premise, he's basically talking to us about his kind of frustration, this obstacle he's facing in his life when he finds out his girlfriend's ex-boyfriend is a Navy SEAL. And he has the habit usually of talking shit about his girlfriend's exes. So he's having a hard time here trying to talk shit about a Navy SEAL.
Fucking Navy SEALs. They're kind of pussies if you really think about it. You know what I mean? Like using night vision, sneaking up on guys. That's a fucking coward's way to fight, dude. You know who's actually brave? Al-Qaeda. That takes courage and bravery. Just in pajamas throwing rocks at tanks.
So there are 3 different ways to use the compare and contrast structure, as you saw, and they were used by Rita Rudner, Bill Burr, and Shane Gillis, all in 3 different ways. So you get to see that firsthand how it's used. So think about this for yourself and how you could use it moving forward, applying it to your material. It gets you tight, crisp laughs. Compare and contrast is alive and well. Tight structure gets crisp laughs. Use it in your own act. And remember, pros use comedic structure. Amateurs don't. If you want some more information on this, grab my book, Breaking Comedy's DNA. It's loaded with all kinds of information, entire collection of the 13 major comedy structures used today to write comedy. So if you want to cut through the chaff, if you want to race through your competition and be at the top of your game, knowing what you're doing, get the book. I'll talk to you later. Take care. See you in the next episode.